Hey there, folks. It is I, Sam Whitfield, and welcome to the Thursday edition of the podcast. As always, this is for you audio subscribers, so welcome. Contact info as usual. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @somebody_NGC. Minds and Gab at Sam Whitfield. Facebook.com/Whitfield Report. TheSamWhitfield.com for all your, needs. I'm going to have a few articles posted up there, hopefully this weekend, for reals this time, folks. And also you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever else you subscribe to podcasts, and please be sure to leave the show a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, if you are so inclined to do so. And yes, folks, I realize that last part of the copy is, kind of redundant, considering that, well, you're already listening to this, in a podcast app, most likely Apple Podcasts or Spotify, since those are the two big primary ones that, my listeners go to, and I really appreciate that. But, please consider leaving a good review. It really helps this show out. So, anyway, folks, what's going on? Well, this week, obviously, Thursdays tend to be like the more pop culture centered days on the show here at the Whitfield Report. So I do like to focus a bit more on that. However, as Andrew Breitbart once said, politics is downstream from culture, and oftentimes politics and pop culture, in fact, more and more these days, it unfortunately seems like they mix a little too often. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I think I've been here for as long as I have been doing this whole podcasting thing. As I've said, I'm a guy who, from an early age was into politics, like in school and whatnot, but I was more of like a pop culture guy. I've been into comics since I was like a really young kid, and I grew up like watching Batman the Animated Series, and like playing every superhero video game I could get my hands on. But I also used to go to the comic shop and actually like collect comics. And, that was actually how I discovered podcasting initially, was because, a long time ago, two of the guys who owned, the comic book store, I don't know if they owned the comic book store, but I think one of them might have worked there. One of the guys who worked at the, comic book store in Denver that I used to, go to growing up, he and his friend, they did a podcast. I can't even remember what the name of it was anymore, but it's, now defunct. And they were doing this like in 2007, 2008, around the time I started. Back when and they had a Lipson account back when podcasting was expensive, and they did well, but they just didn't. They weren't able to make any money off of it, and not that they were looking to, but it got like really expensive for a hobby, and plus, I think one of them changed jobs, so they just weren't able to do it anymore. Maybe now if they were to return to something like that in 2019 with Anchor and other free podcasting hosts out there, maybe that would maybe they would be more successful today. I think they would. But the reason why I bring kind of that backstory up real quick is because, you know, there's been a bit of a kerfuffle uh, in the media this past week over the Joker movie that just came out this past weekend. And although I haven't seen it, I saw I've basically seen the spoiler reviews for it. I don't care, folks. I am going to see it when it comes out on video. Probably I might go see it in the theater. I don't know, but it's one of those movies that I don't really care if I know the spoilers, for or not. Plus, I kind of felt like even though I wasn't gonna see it, I kind of needed to, read some of them to do this analysis. And I'm not really going to be reviewing the film, obviously, since I haven't seen it yet. Although, if I do see it in theaters, I probably will review it for you guys. But I wanted to cover the controversy that has kind of, been sparked as a result of it, because my God, folks, you would think that this would, that this Joker movie was going to cause fucking World War III, or like the downfall of Western civilization, or, America, or, whatever, like, these journalists were saying that there was going to be like violence from incelibates, and there were going to be all these mass shootings on opening night and all of this crazy stuff because of apparently the controversial content in the Joker movie. And then people actually went and saw it, and they were like, wow, it's a very thought-provoking film. It's a very good film, but it's a lot like Taxi Driver. And which I kind of figured, because I read some of the interviews with the director beforehand. I can't remember the guy's name, but he's the guy who did the Hangover movies as well. And I remember, reading a interview with him and saying that a lot of the Joker movie was based off of De Niro's, or was inspired by the films Taxi Driver and King of Comedy, which starred Robert De Niro and was directed by Martin Scorsese, which is what I meant to say just a second ago. Yeah, the Scorsese film. And I've seen both of those films. I saw them both in a college film studies class when I was over at, State College of Florida before I transferred over to where I am now. I basically took like 5 semesters of film studies classes, either like electives or English, classes, because I had the option to. So it was great, and I got to, study basically film and movies and media, all the shit that I'm, into, and write papers. And it was still a hard class, but, I enjoyed it. So, but anyway, I saw Taxi Driver. And, I saw King of Comedy in those classes. Very Taxi Driver, for being like almost 45 years old. It came out like I think I just read on IMDb a second ago, 1976 is when it came out. So that's roughly like 45, years old almost. Or close to it. hard to believe that, films like that in Star Wars are, getting this old, but, nevertheless, I digress. They're classic movies. And so, knowing that, and, knowing that Taxi Driver is a violent movie, it's a good film, and anyone who hasn't seen it and is into movies probably should, but it is a violent film. And, it's about like a Vietnam vet who comes back to New York City in the 70s when New York was a dump, and he kind of becomes a vigilante of sorts and kind of an anti-hero. He's a bit crazy. Travis Bickle is the titular character. He's not really evil, but he's not good. He was like one of the first anti-heroes. And from what it seems like to me, they took the Travis Bickle character for this Joker film, and basically was like, well, what if Travis Bickle really was, if he really did turn evil? And that's what we presumably got with the Joker again. I haven't seen it, but, I've seen some of the spoilers, and yeah, I mean, it kind of seems like, a big Taxi Driver thing. And I'm not like saying that dismissively or critically. I'm just, here's my point in in saying that. So I guess I just get frustrated because whenever the media says something like these films are going, like Joker, they're too controversial. They're going to cause, mass violence among, incels and disgruntled people. First of all, there's no evidence for that that's complete. That's all, subjective. And also, like I said, Taxi Driver, which this film is largely based on, is close to 45 years old, about there. And that movie could just as easily inspire someone to go out and do crazy thing. And that film is way older. Right? People that had access to that film for way long. So, why does the Joker get singled out? I mean, I can think of maybe like a couple reasons. The thing with the Joker as a character is, I mean, the Joker, at the end of the day, obviously there have been different interpretations, some of which can be like the Adam, West Batman, and some that are kind of silly. But at the end of the day, like, the Joker started off as like a serial killer in the Batman comics in like the 1940s. Like, he's always been a fucked up individual, and there's been debate in the comics for years about whether or not like the Joker is like a psychopath, and he can't, if he's mentally ill, or if he's just like a truly cold-blooded and ruthless killer and knows exactly what he's doing. There's been all this speculation that he's like Deadpool that can break the fourth wall. I mean, there are endless Joker theories out. Now, the other thing with this particular, version is it's been suggested, and I actually believe that this could be the case, that like in this universe, right, in this alternate timeline that the Joker takes place in, that Arthur Fleck, the Joker that we know in this movie, isn't the Joker that we know. He's not the Joker that ends up fighting Batman, but he inspired, the Joker. Or, there have been other speculations that this was all, a man's dream, and he's imagining being Joker, or something like that because of the psychotic breaks in the movie. Now, I don't know what to say about all of that, but I will say that the Joker has been, a very an iconic character for 70 years. In the 75 years that Batman has been around, the Joker has pretty much been there as well. Batman's a little bit older as like a character himself, but I mean Joker's been around for decades and decades as well. So there have been plenty of chances for people to do insane shit in real life because of the joke. And this is one thing that really, this pops up like every few years, and it really bothers me when it happens. I brought this up after the El Paso shooting. But we've gotten to the point now where it seems like anytime there's, a film like The Joker or a Netflix series. This was the same thing for Netflix's The Punisher, or video games like Grand Theft Auto. There's always a small group of individuals out there who are, they may be small, but they're very loudmouthed. And they like to say shit like, the Joker is going to inspire shootings, or, my favorite one is Grand Theft Auto is going to, cause kids to commit school shootings. And this was back in like 2002, when Vice City came out. And, I remember, even though I was young then, I had played a little bit, and I remember, there were all these, news stories on TV, oh, don't let your kids, play GTA Vice City. It's horribly violent, and it could cause your kids to become mass shooters. Well, I grew up playing GTA. I turned out okay. Other than a fucked up sense of humor somewhat, in terms of I like dark humor. But, I probably would have gotten that anyway. Through comedy or something. And my parents raised me on The Big Lebowski too, alright? And, I mean, come on. But all joking aside, well, actually not all joking aside. I take that back because my point is the media, I would say the journalistic press at this point loves to blame entertainment anytime some tragedy goes wrong, and they do it on the right and the left. Curiously enough, now we've kind of seen that change where, I guess the more conservative, libertarian types like myself, now we're the culture warriors, and, the PC fun police, the politically correct, police of the left, they're becoming they're joining forces with the religious right and pearl, Fletcher. Right? neither of the two extremes are good. I believe that, life mimics art and art mimics life. And we should, have films like The Joker and like Taxi Driver and, all those out there. I mean, for Christ's sakes, I mean, John Wick too. John Wick, that series is another example. John Wick is very violent, right? But the media wasn't complaining, as much about John Wick, causing a controversy. That's the other thing. The media, they get bored easily, the establishment media on both the right and the left. And so they make, stuff up about, these movies causing violence and whatnot. I just think it's ridiculous. And it actually pisses me off a little bit because there are so many more things that are newsworthy in our society that actually do matter. And like media and entertainment causing violence in America, yeah, I mean, I suppose that, there might be a few people, but that's like one in, maybe 1,000 that goes crazy and tries and does. It's violent media and violent movies, and violent video games, causing people to go out and cause mass destruction. That's not exactly an epidemic here in America, and I don't think it will be. I do, however, think it will become one if the media keeps like freaking out about it. Which, to be honest, I'm always suspicious when they do get, when they do like write reviews like, oh, the Joker movie is controversial, or The Dark Knight is controversial, or something like that, because it's almost like, well, do you want something to happen? I mean, sometimes the way they write about it, it almost seems like they're eager for something to, I don't know. But I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. At all, really. So, yeah, I mean, I just think that the media, or I should say, the journalistic press, in heavy air quotes, at that, and the religious right too. The fact that they're like freaking out about movies and whatnot, in this day and age, it's ridiculous. Um, no one should be afraid of the cinema, and no one should be afraid of, ideas, even though if I disagree with them. Look, there are lots of, left wing films that, you could say are propaganda films that I don't agree with. See, but I don't think they should be, censored or banned. And honestly, I mean, I for one am smart enough to, see through a lot of the bullshit in these movies, and this listening audiences too. I realize that we kind of live in somewhat of a dumbed down population, but I do think that people are getting smarter because of long form conversations, and podcasts and whatnot. So I don't think we're entirely fucked because of our media, at least in terms of entertainment. I think sometimes the news and real life events, I think that actually fucks up our, society more. I think the fact that so many people are on antidepressants and SSRIs, I think that's a real problem. I do think mental health is a problem here in America, and I would like to see us, maybe as a society, do a better job of taking care of one another, and helping, people who need mental health, who need mental health services. And I don't think that the government is necessarily, uh, the proper solution, at least federally, in this. But I do think that, maybe different states, maybe different local governments, church groups, what have you. I do think that there are ways to approach this situation, but getting rid of pop culture, media is, not going to, help that. It's actually funny. I've been talking about Tool for the past couple weeks, that band, and I mean, the song Vicarious off of the 10,000 Days album, that first track, is really about how the American news media, glorifies violence and, whatnot, and how people experience, death kind of vicariously, but they don't, it desensitizes them, and it, that song is true. So, but do we get rid of the media, the news media? No. So I just think that this whole thing is stupid, but, and look, I actually brought this very same point up like a few months ago, when Trump was saying that violent video games, and violent media were to blame for El Paso. I was like, no, Donnie, you're wrong. I like you, but you're wrong, buddy. You're wrong. So I don't know, folks. It's a crazy world out there, and if we can at least be entertained somewhat, then what the hell is the point of all of it? Anyway, like I said, I'll probably see the Joker movie once it comes out on, I said DVD, but do people use those? I'll probably like rent it off of Apple Movies, or if it's on Amazon Prime early enough, then I don't know. If someone wants to buy me a ticket, to go review, or like send me some money for a movie ticket, or whatnot, PayPal me that way. Feel free. I'll go review it, but money is kind of tight, like as a college student, so like I've got my streaming entertainment that I'm already paying for, and I'm enjoying that. I don't like movie theaters all that much, to be honest. Although there are exceptions. I will go see the new James Bond movie when that comes out, and of course also the new Star Wars movie. Like, those are must see, and although I didn't see the last John Wick, just because the opening weekend like fell right when I was midterms, and then I just never had to go see all the, that one. I will see number 4. I have, so there are certain movies, but generally I just like to wait for stuff out, on DVD or home. Speaking of which, El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie, is coming out on Friday. And I can't fucking wait, honestly. I really can't. It's gonna be epic, and well, hopefully. I say that now, and I'm 90% sure it will be good because it's Vince Gilligan and he's fantastic. Maybe I'll like live tweet it with Jason, or Tate or something, the guys from On Tap, and they don't know that I want to do a live tweet session, until they're hearing this. But really, if any of you guys want to like live tweet it with me, on Friday, or maybe like do a live tweet session or like a podcast. If anyone's down for that, DM me on Twitter, like I said, or tweet me at TMWR. I'm fucking excited because it's Breaking Bad. Oh yeah, and that's the other point I wanted to make, and I realize I'm kind of rambling, but that's what I like to do on the Thursday show. Is just ramble and get the stuff on my mind, off my mind, and I was thinking about this with the whole Joker movie, right? We've also had shows like The Sopranos and Breaking Bad, and with Breaking Bad especially, like the whole premise of the show is that like you know, we got like a mild mannered, high school chemistry teacher, Walter White, and he basically gets turned into like an evil an evil, ruthless, drug lord over the course of like 5 seasons. And in reality, in the timeline of Breaking Bad, the whole entire series like takes place in just like a year and a half, maybe not even like maybe not even like a year and a half. Maybe it's you're like number, but the whole like storyline, it's not very long, and so right by the logic of you know by the logic of all these critics complaining that Joker going to cause violence, well we should all be shitting the bed collectively over Breaking Bad, because Breaking Bad could inspire your local high school chemistry teacher to become a meth cook, right? And I'm laughing as I'm saying that, and you guys are probably chuckling as well. But seriously, with all the outrage and whatnot, that's where we're headed. You know, like yeah, there's violence out there in the world, and obviously I do think that we've been desensitized, but I don't think I think that has to do more with our actual news and less of our entertainment. That honestly, folks, that's why I've partially stepped away from politics. Like I've said, I'm not fully retired. Uh, you know, but I'm doing like a fusion of politics and entertainment now, where I'll cover politics more on like Saturday, and then do this pop culture thing on Thursday, or sometimes I'll reverse. Either way, I can't do the politics thing strictly. Why? Because it's starting to mess with my brain, and it was starting to mess with my mental health. So, like when I talk politics, like I'm basically like a guy at a bar who likes to talk politics with my buddies. Like that's what this podcast is when I cover politics. I don't try and pretend like I'm some super, intellectual. I am still conservative, but I've never tried to be like snobby about it. And that snobby conservatives, they never like me either. I'm more of like an Andrew Breitbart, kind of punk rock, kind of hipsterish, kind of jazz cat. And by the way, I'm wearing a beret, right? An authentic beret from France. So that's very hipster jazz cat. But anyway, folks, yeah, I mean the fact that the media is getting pissed off about pop culture media really kind of grinds my gears this week. So, there's that, and then I just like I said, I can't wait for Breaking Bad. That's going to be a terrific movie. And oh, I promised I would review the new John Coltrane album for you guys. Speaking of the jazz cat thing, Uh, First of all, I'm obviously you guys can reply to me, but I am curious to know like if any of the listeners out there do listen to jazz music. Uh, so if you do you like when I know like lots of my listeners are definitely like rock. Do you like when I do jazz and whatnot too? I like classical too. Should I maybe like review classical? I don't know. But anyway, the John Coltrane album, the one that just came out. If you're new to Coltrane and you're new to jazz, this is not it, for you. But if you like jazz, if you like seeing an artist just period kind of like experiment with their sound, this was an unreleased album, called Blue World, and he really experiments, saxophone. And this one, you really see kind of how Coltrane went from being rough, kind of around the edges, kind of being edgy. I mean, jazz musicians kind of like punk rockers of the 40s and 50s and early 60s. Kind of see Coltrane here, or I guess hear him go from kind of being unrefined to being properly polished on this album, and it sounds really great, and that's kind of my album of Blue World. So you can catch that on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever you use to stream. It's only $10 on iTunes, or if you don't do streaming music, if you still buy your albums. I actually did buy this one outright because I uh even though I do have album music, I do like to somewhat collect like some of my favorite musicians. So I don't know. At $10, it's not that bad. But yeah, and then I've also been listening to a lot of Dire Straits this week. Oh my god, so much Dire Straits and Mark Knopfler, who I've always said is one of the most underrated guitarists, who's like really good. Like Mark Knopfler has played with Clapton multiple times, and with Sting, like he's a he's a top tier like level A guitarist, sure, but I really don't feel like he gets as much recognition as he should. So I've been playing some of his stuff from Dire Straits, and I mean, he's pretty well recognized with Dire Straits, but as a solo artist, I feel like that's really where he kind of goes unacknowledged, but he's really good. Sailing to Philadelphia is a fantastic album that I recommend you all check out. That's from like 2000. I grew up listening to the album as a kid, when my mom would take me on road trips across Colorado and across the great country, and uh, you know, that was one of those albums I grew up on. And what's the name of the newest album? Uh, oh, I George Cole. Well, uh, Dick Party Offler. Where are you, Mark? Mark. Okay, Down the Road Wherever. That's his newest album. Great album, folks. Terrific album. I highly recommend that you guys listen to it. It really is terrific. Really worth it. So those are kind of my album recommendations. Full Train album, and then Mark Knopfler. His entire solo discography is pretty good. It's not all like rock. He does rock. He also does a bit of like bluegrass too, and like folk. I kind of like Scottish. Very good. Good drinking music too. And I don't have any beer on me uh night, or I guess morning podcast today, but he may remedy that. So no beer review. But anyway, folks, that just about does it for the Thursday podcast. So I want to thank you so very much for the show. I'll be back Saturday, and this time I will have my guest Jimmy from the other side of the pond on with me. To shoot shit on his channel. He does great political stuff. He also does great pop culture stuff as well. So happy to have him on. In the meantime, from all of us here at NG Studios, have a good day or a good evening wherever you are in the past hour. God bless. God save the great nation. God, freedom, like in that order, and I'll see you guys Saturday live stream of court. Then, God bless. So long.